Miigwech, Nancy, for starting our meeting off in a good way. And I hope that there's been enough food for everybody that wanted to have a bowl of soup and a little bit of bannock. In case you don't know who I am, I'm Derek Niepenak. I'm the chief here in Anishinaabe since 2021. And going back earlier, starting around here in 2008. I want to thank you all for coming in here on this cool November day, welcoming the snow as we contemplate the past of our community and the future, and of course the present of our community. I want to acknowledge the council who are here with me today. I want everybody to think, if you can, for a minute about one of our councillors, Don Chartrand. He would be here today, but he's been sick for a little while, and our prayers are out to him and his family as he's in recovery right now. And I'm not sure if he's home yet, but I know he's been in and out of the Dauphin getting medical attention. So thinking about him while we have this conversation today. We started this conversation as this council very early on about the history of the Duck Bay community. And I want to be very clear in terms of what my position has always been from the time that I started reviewing the history to today. And my position has always been that Duck Bay was unlawfully surrendered. I reviewed the historical documents, I've reviewed the land claims that we've done in the past, and nothing has changed my mind. I still today believe that Duck Bay was unlawfully surrendered. The challenge is, for us, is how do we come together as a community to have this conversation, to organize ourselves, and to take that conversation to the Crown to talk about outstanding treaty obligations owed to Duck Bay, Treaty 4 ban. I think that that's part of what we're trying to start and what we're trying to continue. We have a long history of engaging this conversation. And most recently, I want to thank, of course, George Monroe for coming to our council meeting about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and once again, bringing the documentation saying, when are we going to start having this conversation again about the historical Duck Bay ban? Because it did exist. Duck Bay ban did exist in 1874, 1875, 1876, and right up to today. But the difference between what was there then and what is there now is whether or not the Crown recognizes Duck Bay, because it doesn't today. The King does not recognize the existence of the Duck Bay ban. And that's the challenge that we face, is to what effort do we put in to resurrect that conversation and to make people listen that need to listen. And how does that impact the Anishinaabe? Well, this is the way it impacts us, is because many descendants of the Duck Bay band were brought into the Pine Creek band. Even today, there's descendants who are applying for what we'll call Indian status, and they're being admitted into the Pine Creek band, or the Anishinaabe, as we're now called, but they're originally Duck Bay families. Many of you in here, maybe most of you in this room today, are descendants of original Duck Bay families. Myself, I'm included in that, and many of you are as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I don't mean to waste your time, but if you're unfamiliar with the history, I want everybody to be familiar with the history so that we have a common understanding of what happened. This is the summary and the original claim that we submitted to Canada in the time of our late Chief Clifford Mackay. A lot of the background work was done by many different people, but at the end of the day, a historian put this document together, a historian with the academic credentials in the background to go and defend this position if we ever needed to in court. So that's the difference with this document, is that I know a lot of people have bits and pieces of information, but we don't ask for that. We ask for one document which can withstand cross-examination from a judge or from a lawyer and be admitted into advancing a conversation. That's what this document is. I'm just going to read the summary so that we understand what happened. When an adhesion to Treaty Number 4 was signed at Swan Lake in the old Northwest Territories on September 24th, 1875, it had not been written within the text of the treaty whom the representative was for the Duck Bay Band. However, it has been surmised by the inclusion of the Duck Bay membership in the Kisikoos 1875 annuity pay list that Chief Kisikoos had signed on behalf of the people living at Duck Bay. In 1877, the Duck Bay members were removed from Kisikoos' pay list and were paid separately at Duck Bay. So by 1877, the commissioner was coming to Duck Bay and paying treaty annuity at Duck Bay. That's what that says. In late 1878, the Duck Bay Reserve along the eastern shore of Lake Winnipegosis was surveyed for them. So what do we have by 1878? We have a community of Indians living in a band entitled to a reserve. That's treaty. That's the application of treaty. For several years, the Roman Catholic Church had been devoted to evangelizing and amalgamating the Indians residing in Lake Manitoba, Lake Winnipegosis, and Swan Lake. In order to facilitate this mission, the Archbishop of St. Boniface requested in 1880 that the Duck Bay people be relocated about Duck River. It had also been brought to the attention of the department that the majority of the Duck Bay members were not interested in the relocation. However, Reverend Camper, a Roman Catholic priest, continued to pursue an amalgamation of the bands to Pine River, a requisite to establishing a permanent mission that required a large encompassing settlement. So the Catholic Church was trying to get people from all over the area, as far as Lake Manitoba, even the Inner Lake, to come here to take up camp close to where the church grounds were. Unfavorable to the scheme, the Indian Department arranged to have Poplar Point added to Duck Bay. Does everybody know where Poplar Point is today? I think we all know where it is. However, this proposal never materialized. It is not documented why the addition of Poplar Point was not carried through, nor why in the early months of 1886, 10 heads of families indicated their desire to withdraw from treaty. Herman Martineau, Indian agent for Duck Bay area, had not indicated the reason behind the withdrawal of the Duck Bay members. It may be concluded by Bishop DuPont's statement, the difficulties which existed formerly have now disappeared. Those who wish to reside at Duck Bay have left the treaty. And that's where we have to ask that question, how and why do people leave treaty? Because once you're born treaty for good. It doesn't matter what piece of paper somebody brings to you. Those who wish to reside at Duck Bay have left treaty, that those who were not in favor of relocating to Pine River had no other recourse but to withdraw in order to continue their occupancy at Duck Bay. Keep in mind, this is the summary that Canada received when we put the original claim in. On December 7th, 1886, Inspector McCall reported that the remaining members who had not withdrawn from treaty had moved to Pine Creek. Out of 8 remaining voting members, 7 of them agreed on Christmas Eve in 1886 to surrender the Duck Bay Reserve in lieu of one at Pine Creek. Out of the 11 voting members whose names had been struck from the 1886 annuity pay list, 10 of them were granted scrip in February of 1887. 9 of the 10 who were granted scrip certificates consented to forfeiting their rights as Indians. The Indian Commission then informed the Department of Indian Affairs that the withdrawals had now cleared the way for the remainder of the band to exchange Duck Bay for Pine Creek. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing people who had originally agreed to treaty taking scrip or Métis scrip, and when you take that, Canada no longer considered you, or the Crown no longer considered you, a treaty Indian, which means that you can't have a reserve, which means that you're not part of a band, which means that you can't vote for the creation or the surrender of a reserve. You see what they did? They used paper. Concurrent with the attempt to validate the surrender was a request by former Duck Bay members to be readmitted back into treaty. However, their petition for readmission was denied. When the surrender document was again submitted to the Indian Department in 1893, reference was made by the Commission as to whether Agent Martineau had been authorized on behalf of the Superintendent General to obtain the surrender of Duck Bay. He questioned the validity of the surrender taken by one headman on behalf of the band. That headman that signed was Jean-Baptiste Nepagazet. on behalf of the Duck Bay Band. One headman signed on behalf of the entire Duck Bay Band. Is that legal? Even in the 1880s? In December 1893, Hayter Reed, the deputy superintendent, informed the Indian Commission that the attestation documents required the signature of an individual authorized to take oaths in order for the surrender to be valid. Adjustments and corrections were made to the documents. However, upon later submission, Reed still questioned the validity of the surrender of Duck Bay. On the query of whether the surrender needed to be assented to by the majority of the male members of the band on the full age of 21, or whether it required the assent of the majority of those present at the meeting and entitled to vote, there was uncertainty about the legality of the surrender vote. That's what's being raised here. Reed was advised by the deputy minister that the bill for consolidating the law should be made clear during the next House session. That never happened. But on February 8, 1894, order in council was passed recommending the surrender of the Duck Bay Reserve in lieu of one at Pine Creek. So in Ottawa, they passed a bill to recommend the surrender, but meanwhile on the ground, they didn't even know if it was legal. On July 16, 1912, those members who had withdrawn from Duck Bay were still living on what was formerly the Duck Bay Reserve, and they were requesting to have their interests in the Duck Bay area maintained, the land in which their fathers had occupied long before the first treaty. Pine Creek submitted this claim in 2004. In 2008, when I became chief, I'd become aware that Canada was not willing to recognize the unlawful surrender of Duck Bay. They were not willing to negotiate on that. So as far as I'm concerned, that claim is still there. But I don't believe sitting here today that it's a Pine Creek claim. I believe that the unlawful surrender of Duck Bay is a Duck Bay claim. But who has standing to bring that claim if not Pine Creek or Minnegosa-Bean Anishinaabe? Because we are the recognized Indian Act band. Pine Creek, Minnegosa-Bean Anishinaabe is the recognized Indian Act band under Canadian law. So they'll hear me when I go, but who from Duck Bay has standing to force the Crown's hand? That's the question that we have. For years, we have raised this issue. I go back to a letter in 2002 from the late Marvin McKay, where he was talking about the reinstatement of the Duck Bay Band and moving all of the families off the Pine Creek list back to a proper Duck Bay list. And I have a listing of those names that were there in 2002. Going back a little bit further, in 1997, there was a band council resolution passed by the Pine Creek Band. At the time, my uncle was chief, Thomas Nepenak, supporting the recognition of the historical Duck Bay Band. So this conversation has happened time and time again. And more recently, when we brought this to the table in 2021, we were talking about a position, a declaratory statement from the leadership here at the Minnegosa-Bean Anishinaabe recognizing the historic treaty band, the Duck Bay Band. When we were about to sign, we ended up being contested. The election was contested, so we weren't in a position to sign or agree to a resolution that would recognize the existence of the historical Duck Bay Band. Now, with that election appeal, that resolution came off the table, and we focused on the claim. And as you know, the Cows and Plows claim is now part of our history as a community. So now we come back to this question, we revisit this resolution, this legal position that will have an impact on the future of who represents Duck Bay. Although it's not our interest, because we have a legal responsibility as the chief and council of the Minnegosa-Bean Anishinaabe, it opens the door for the recognition of the historical treaty band known as the Duck Bay Band, because it's the right thing for us to do. It doesn't mean that we're moving people off our band list, because we don't do that. It's not up to us to move people off our list. But if Canada were to recognize the Duck Bay Band, it would be up to Duck Bay families to decide who wants to move to a Duck Bay Band outside of us, and then pursue the lawful obligations that are owed under treaty for the Duck Bay families. under a different heading. That's what's at stake here. That's what this conversation is about. The Minnegozi Anishinaabe cannot raise this claim again, this unlawful surrender claim. We cannot raise it. It's not ours to raise. It's a Duck Bay claim. And families that are willing to organize around the Duck Bay name, the history, the historical Treaty 4 Duck Bay Band will have that option. And I think it's up to us as family members, because we're all related somehow in this room, to support that step one way or another. So I want to thank all of you who have been part of leadership over the years, who have kept this conversation alive. I want to thank you for continuing to persist, going to Fort Capel at treaty time every year and saying, where's our seat? I want to thank you for continuing to do that. I know George has been there every single year, every treaty gathering. Every time there's a Treaty 1 to 11 gathering, I see Billy Joe at the gathering, speaking about treaty and the Duck Bay people. Charlie Bushy kept the conversation going for years as well when he was in as council in chief, talking about what about the Duck Bay people. And so many others who had made up the council of the Duck Bay and the different chiefs of Duck Bay over the years who didn't get the recognition that they should have had and that they deserve. That's my position. That's where I sit today. We have a draft resolution, and this is the third community meeting we've had on this specific issue. We have a draft resolution that we had Jeremy put together for us that speaks to the existence of the historical Duck Bay Band, and we want to recognize that as council of the Minnegozi Anishinaabe. So before we get into questions and comments and conversation, I'd like Jeremy to read into the record for us the content of the Band Council resolution.
Miigwech, Chief, for the introduction and also for setting out some of the historical context dating back about 150 years since the adhesion to Treaty Number 4, and the historical context which informs the 15 or so paragraphs that have found their way into this proposed Band Council resolution. As the Chief mentioned, my name is Jeremy McKay, and I've been tasked, I've been given a very important task with trying to reduce to writing in a short and accurate way the expression of the political leadership of Pine Creek First Nation. So before we, as the Chief mentioned, before we invite comments, I just want to outline to you and for the record the proposed Band Council resolution. As many of you know, there's really two parts of a Band Council resolution. There's the whereas section, which sets out some of the key background, and then there's the operative part of a Band Council resolution, which sets out which declarations that the Chief and Council are prepared to sign off on. So I'll start with the whereas section. There is 13 paragraphs, so bear with me. And then the key part of the resolution concludes with 4 declarations. And a lot of this, the Chief has already mentioned in his historical context, but you'll see that some of the topics that he raised have found itself into the text of the BCR. Number 1, at Swan Lake on September 24th, 1875, Chief Kisikus and Chief Key fixed their mark on a adhesion to Treaty Number 4, which was signed the year prior. Under the written terms of Treaty Number 4, the two chiefs agreed to accept the several provisions, payments, and reserves of the original Treaty Number 4, which was signed the year earlier at Fort Qu'Appelle. The families at the time that were living at Duck Bay and Shoal River were listed together on the Treaty 4 annuity pay list under the Kisikus bands for 3 years, 1874, 1875, and 1876. For the year 1877 and forward, there were separate pay lists for the Kisikus bands and also for the historic Duck Bay band. The 1877 pay list for the historic Duck Bay band includes the name Joseph Beauchamp in the position of a headman. It therefore appears that Chief Kisikus fixed his mark on the Treaty 4 adhesion on behalf of the historic Duck Bay band, but that Joseph Beauchamp was at the time the representative of the Duck Bay band. As the chief mentioned, in 1878, the Duck Bay Reserve was surveyed by the Crown. And attached to the draft resolution, just because I know folks like pictures, we're going to attach a map of the initial survey of the Duck Bay Reserve, so everyone could know precisely what the location was, and also just see some historical documentation in terms of the geography of the Duck Bay band. Now this is where things get derailed. Subsequent in time to the Treaty 4 adhesion, the Government of Canada failed to act honorably by claiming to have surrendered the historic Duck Bay band without obtaining the free, prior, and informed consent of the Duck Bay people. Concerning the claim surrendered that I just mentioned on August 2, 1895, concerning the claim surrendered that I just mentioned, on August 2, 1995, Pine Creek First Nation by Band Council resolution called upon what was then the Minister of Indian Affairs to take the necessary steps to reestablish the historic Duck Bay Reserve, and in the decades following, largely by individuals who are ancestrally connected to the historic Duck Bay band, advocacy has continued and letters have been issued to Minigwazibi and Anishinaabe and the Government of Canada regarding the reclamation of the historic Duck Bay band. Now, the chief mentioned the 1995 Band Council resolution was a unanimous resolution of Chief Thomas Nepanak, the late Marvin McKay, Rainey McKay, Bev Cody, Mary Nepanak, and Councillor Lorraine Flatfoot. Presently, individuals who are ancestrally connected to the historic Duck Bay band are members of Minigwazibi and Anishinaabe. And other individuals who are ancestrally connected to the historic Duck Bay band, some of them are not members of Minigwazibi and Anishinaabe, and efforts are ongoing to identify both the current members and those who may not be members. All members of Minigwazibi and Anishinaabe are recognized to be full members of Minigwazibi and Anishinaabe without discrimination. All members of Minigwazibi and Anishinaabe rely upon the continued existence of Minigwazibi and Anishinaabe as a band, among other things, to exercise, to protect, and enforce treaty and Aboriginal rights. groups, in plural, groups representing modern collectives of persons who are ancestrally connected to the historic Duck Bay Band are seeking support from Minigwazipi and Anishinaabe to pursue legal and political status towards reclaiming the historic Duck Bay Band. An effort is ongoing to identify the group or groups that can fairly and adequately represent the interests of those individuals. One of those groups operates as the Duck Bay Descendants Council, Inc., and has on September 18, 2020, obtained status at the Treaty 4 governance table, subject to the continuing dialogue with Minigwazipi and Anishinaabe. As the chief mentioned, early on in this current administration on August 3, 2021, and today, November 16, 2024, Minigwazipi and Anishinaabe convened public community meetings about the historic Duck Bay Band. Now the final whereas section before we get into the operative part of the resolution. At a duly convened meeting today, November 16, 2024, the elected chief and council of Minigwazipi and Anishinaabe has determined that it is in the best interests of Minigwazipi and Anishinaabe to recognize and affirm the existing and previously expressed support. Right, we talked about the band council resolutions previously for the efforts to reclaim the historic Duck Bay Reserve and to call upon the Government of Canada to begin good faith negotiations with either one representative or a group of representatives of the historic Duck Bay Band toward its recognition and reinstatement as a Treaty 4 band. Now therefore, be it resolved, the whereas sections that I just mentioned are true according to the best information that we have available to us. And all of that forms an important or an integral part of this band council resolution. Number 2, Minigwazipi recognizes and affirms the existing expressed support for the efforts to reclaim the historic Duck Bay Reserve. Number 3, Minigwazipi calls upon the Government of Canada to begin good faith negotiations with representatives of the historic Duck Bay Band toward its recognition and reinstatement as a Treaty 4 band. And finally, number 4, this band council resolution is not an agreement to transfer, divide, or alter the status, resources, or assets of Minigwazipi and Anishinaabe. And this band council resolution is made on a without prejudice basis. So I'll turn it, that's the overview of what the band council resolution proposes. And with that, I'll turn it back to Chief Nipanek.
Thank you much, Jeremy, for reading the resolution into the record of our community meeting here today. And as Jeremy has stated, this resolution here today would start a conversation, I think, that's long overdue, conversation that puts us in the position of supporting the initiatives of those families from Duck Bay, those descendants of the Duck Bay families towards their rightful place, sitting with the crown and being recognized under treaty. This is long overdue. We're all impacted by this. And I almost get a little bit emotional because I feel like this is something that should have happened a long time ago. That we should have had the faith in one another to be able to get to this point years and years ago already, in the time of our previous generations or even before that, to set the record straight, because there's still outstanding treaty obligations to many of our family members that recognize themselves as being part of that historical Duck Bay community. You see, the challenge that we've always faced is that Duck Bay existed before treaty, and it existed before the Indian Act. But when Canada created the Indian Act, it started amalgamating and consolidating communities. Some communities under Treaty 4 were amalgamated, which means that one community was brought to the same location as another community. So they consolidated distinct communities together. And it was only now in this time that we're beginning to unravel that history to figure out who belongs where and who belongs in which community. Because I've always believed that people should be able to live next to the neighbor that they want to live next to. That's what we're trying to do here, is to set the record straight and to create that space where these decisions can happen. And historical communities that were once there, that should have continued to be there, can rise again. I believe that's what treaty implementation is about. And that's why I'm willing to sign this resolution. I want to open it up to the floor for conversation. I want to be able to sign this resolution in the next 45 minutes. And we will keep, as with every band council resolution is available for review at the band office. The band council resolution is a public record. So if anybody ever wanted to review a BCR, some of them are like this, some of them are full of legal words and so forth, but they're part of the public record of the decision-making of the council. And they're available, they're not secret. So I see Charlie Bushy, former chief, has his hand up. I'd like to acknowledge him and allow him the floor. Would you like to use the microphone? Charlie, there's a few folks that asked for a microphone. That's kind of why we brought it in. I don't know if you want to use it.
To the side here. On your way, I want to acknowledge the chief, Derek Nicknack, the council, Jimmy Wetch, the elders. I also want to acknowledge some of the people looking right from the city of Winnipeg. The Ray Galleron family, wife, my other family, the Genais. For me, I want to introduce myself first. My name is Charlie Bushy, born and raised in Duck Bay. I was fortunate to be a chief here and also a council member. 14 years I served Pine Creek First Nation. I also sat down with a great leader, the late Clifford McKay. He taught me a lot. Certainly I don't have the credentials, as many people say Charlie Bushy doesn't have an education. But Charlie Bushy has been self-taught. I know what it takes. I know the white paper. And I know what governs us, the Indian Act system. We are not treaty. I believe that. We are status card Indians, governed by the Indian Act. Big impact. Why is it only time to vote? The registered members could come on reserve. Dauphin, Winnipeg, Brandon could come and vote. I believe there's offloading responsibility here. There is no transparency and accountabilities. There's transfer payments annually from the trust fund in Ottawa. And I request Chief Niepnack to follow up, to represent us in a meaningful way, to seek these answers. because there's transfer payments, majority of the funds, I believe, goes to the province of Manitoba. That's a big question. I also believe we are not welfare Indians. It's a provincial system. We are trust fund Indians. We are funded accordingly from the trust fund, and that's the way it should be. And perhaps elaborating with the mayor and councils of Duck Bay and Canterville, their jurisdiction. How do we maneuver and make it effective to have my status number, for example, if I live in Duck Bay, the mayor and council could secure an agreement with the chief and council of Pine Creek. Bottom line, where is my fund? Liege Bagosendaman, Kanishnabeya, Opogan Gatkona, Nimishum Saknoko, Bagoseniman. Tapitay me anam yan. Hawaw Pogan, Otayaway. Mi en skagi mi kaman, mi en nin. Mi go komak mi shom sakagi bia object wa. Mi shigo wo malagi kita ko shinwat. Nete connect. Their instructions were clearly to come and seek the massive resources at the time in 1867 when Canada was born. They didn't see the treaty as they were obligated. They only see what's existing, the Indian Act system. We need to change that. We need to elaborate together in a meaningful way to secure a better future for our grandchildren. Perhaps introducing our own constitution and seeking sovereign territory, land and water. The losses. We go back to Duck Bay as adhesion. Okay? I see there's a big problem, a big gap. Illegally surrendering Duck Bay. I question Baptist Nabugizit. Was he actually registered to Duck Bay? No. He was registered member to another First Nation. Why did Father Camper allow that? He did not gain support from Duck Bay. And no disrespect and no offense to anybody. We need to work together. Many other things I studied, I've done research. I certainly want to be part of, but I am not going to go push my way in. I want to be the chief. No. And perhaps, how do we fund this process if we recognize Duck Bay? I seek that many years ago. There's a tobacco tax here. It should be split 3 ways, 33% going to Duck Bay, Pine Creek, and Canterville, because that's who's buying the tobacco products. And Pine Creek should support by way of resolution for that money to be allocated directly. Nobody is pushing the province, their jurisdiction. The King and Queen of England was here and authorized Prince Rupert. You know, Prince Rupert sold Canada to Canada. all of the resources. The loss of blueberries, where's our moose? Here we are, no disrespect. We're provincial Indians getting permits to go and hunt the moose in Duck Mountains. We're begging. No, we have to tell the province, this is our position. Shame on you do put them animals for us to survive. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chief, for allowing me to say a few words. Thank you very much.
My name is Elaine Furlan. I live in Duck Bay. Charlie, come here for 1 minute. When you were chief, do you remember sitting at my kitchen table?
Many times.
What did I tell you?
I don't know.
I said to you, Charlie, what are you doing in Pine Creek? When are you going to do what needs to be done for Duck Bay to take it back? You remember that?
Yeah.
You cried that day. Well, today, I want to acknowledge you because now, Charlie, you're doing what needs to be done. Okay? Fine.
Thank you much. George, you want to come up and speak from here? Because the microphone won't reach over there.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an historic day. Pine Creek does hand over a resolution for Duck Bay moving forward. It's an historic time, and we should all be glad and recognize this chief and council for the good work that they're doing. They do have all the history, except that the history, some of the history that is brought forward regarding script was fraud. So those people who were given script were all reinstated. Marvin McKay proved that. So the script thing is all fraud. The government committed fraud. The church committed fraud. The church brought people here from Wailesi Capital to illegally surrender to Duck Bay Reserve. If you look, I got records from the 40s where the people of Duck Bay were already here. 40 years before treaty, Duck Bay existed. Pine Creek never existed. Father Camper even stated, Pine River, Pine Creek was never mentioned. 1902, the government of Canada, because of the residential schools, recognized Pine Creek as an Indian band under INAC. So it's an INAC created Indian band because Pine Creek didn't sign Treaty 4, Duck Bay did. And as far as Pine Creek, we have maps that state that Pine Creek is in Treaty 2 here, not Treaty 4. So we have to recognize all the mistakes and all the corruption that took place regarding our treaties. We are all treaty people. I'm not asking for Duck Bay to be reinstated as a band. I'm asking for Duck Bay to be reinstated as a Treaty 4 nation. We can solve our own problems, establish our own governance and everything. Under the Indian Act, we are prisoners of war. And that's not a situation that people want to be in. And as far as who's got consent to move this claim forward, the Duck Bay Descendant Council and the descendants that were enfranchised, that still are being franchised. The second generation cutoff. My descendants, my grandchildren, and their children, they can't apply for status because of that second generation cutoff. I'm sure a lot of you people sitting around here have the same problem. We have to straighten this out. You heard the chief said you're a born treaty, you should die treaty. So why is there a second generation cut off by the Indian Act? We have to challenge that system because they're committing fraud. I mean, they're turning our people into Métis citizens. And David Chartrand is the lead of that corruption. It's divide and conquer. He gets all kinds of dollars from the federal government to move his agenda forward so they all become Canadian citizens, persons under the law. We're under Admiralty jurisdiction in this country. Canada is not a country, it's a corporation registered in Washington, D.C. as a corporation. The United States is a corporation registered in Puerto Rico as a corporation. The United States is still under the crown, but they don't even know it. That's how bad they are. They don't do their research. So, I mean, we've done our research. We know who we are. I know who I am. I'm a Anishinaabe and I'm a sovereign citizen. You ain't no watch come across this because mango then. You can't on this on the county. You can't on this. I've been no Jago Jagado the man. You can't Ginabi. I've been no Jimenani, Nagatia. It's Nagatia, I've been no Jia. But can I kill me man? I go tapping on. Can I go tapping on all? I go see in the next 50 years. So we have to wake up the people, understand who you are as an Anishinaabe. You have a good plan here, government, but then we see the Anishinaabe nation. Follow that. Get out of the Indian Act because it's genocide policy. So we have to understand where we're moving. We have to work for our people. Everybody says we're all related here, which is true. But let's not fight together. Let's work together and stand up our nations as sovereign Indigenous nation. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Desmond Chartrand. My parents are James and Lorraine Chartrand from Duck Bay. They did give you a lot of information here, all of which is correct. The one thing they didn't say is my group, I've been working on the Duck Bay claim for several years already, and our claim is already in. It's been in for roughly 3 years, and it's already passed preliminary review and has gone on to the Department of Justice. We got a letter last week. Now we should get an update on January the 1st, 2025, and see how far we're going ahead with it. We have over 1,000 members signed for the Duck Bay Band, and I just wanted everybody to know that because that wasn't really brought up here. And that's it. Thank you for letting me talk.
Would anybody else like a couple minutes with the microphone?
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. My name is Joseph Boucher. My parents are Larry Boucher and Beverly Boucher. The people that stood up here before me talked about working together. For the last 3 years during COVID, I worked with these individuals. I was involved with the Duck Bay Descendants Corporation. The things I'm about to say here tonight, people are probably not going to like it. People are going to be upset with me because I'm going to bring out the truth right now. I was on a membership committee for Duck Bay Descendants Council. When they thought they were going to receive private funding from a private lender, $4.2 million, George and Amy and Charlie fired everybody in Duck Bay Descendants Corporation. They thought they were going to borrow $4.2 million from a private lender. Their plan was to dissolve the corporation, go to native land claims, and borrow another $10 million from them. What no one has said here today, most people don't know this, but Canada was, Duck Bay was originally shorted 474 acres in the original survey. That money right now, Canada has admitted that they owe Duck Bay $100 to $150 million right now. Nobody in here, none of these individuals have brought that up. They're talking about working together. George, Avi, and Charlie have proven already that they're not working with anybody. They're working for themselves. When I was a part of that corporation, I've tried for 3 years to hold meetings in Duck Bay. All the people in Duck Bay want to know what's going on, what's going on. Every time they speak to me, they ask me what's going on. And I tell them, I'm trying to have a meeting here. I go to George, Avi, and Charlie, who were on the board at the time. And none of them wanted to have a meeting. I tried for 3 years to have a meeting in Duck Bay to involve the people of Duck Bay. And they refused that. They refused it. Now they're both of these individuals. I've stood up here within a few minutes before I got up here talking about working together. There's some members from Duck Bay's mayor and council here. None of these individuals have gone to the mayor and council of Duck Bay and said, I want to work with the people of Duck Bay. If we work together, we can make this happen. What's going on here is they're not working with anybody. They want to get their hands on that money. We were going back and forth with Billy Joe Delaron. In a private meeting, Billy Joe Delaron offered me a seat on his state chief and council. I refused it because I see the corruption that's going on with these individuals. Nobody's talking about it because nobody knows about it. So I just want to bring that up here, that these individuals are not working in the best interest of the family of the people of Duck Bay. They're working in the best interest of themselves. As far as this VCR goes, I don't know what your guys' intent or who you want to give it to. But in my opinion, I am not a part of mayor and council of Duck Bay. But that's where that VCR should be going, to the people of Duck Bay, not individuals that say they represent Duck Bay, that don't come to Duck Bay to speak to the families of Duck Bay. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Would anybody else like to share a few words?
My name's Luella Pronto, and I am married to Morris Pronto from Duck Bay. During all this thing, I've been told that I had absolutely nothing to do with the Duck Bay Indians. Well, lo and behold, I find out I'm married to my cousin and didn't know this all this time. You elders may remember us as being the one that lost their son to a bear at Denby Point. The younger kids will know me because I worked in the high school in Montagoses. I've been in this and didn't find out that I'm 7th generation Chartran and my husband is 6th generation. And now all these people that I've known all my life, since I was a little kid, I'm finding out are my relatives. Didn't know that. Didn't know we all marry their own families. And I am tired of the families all fighting about this Duck Bay thing. Yes, we are all from the Duck Bay Indians. We were told, no, you're not. Well, now I find out I am. Now I know who we are. And everybody else needs to sit down and correct the records that the government has been using against us. Your St. Boniface records. My husband's grandparents, wrong people. 150 years. Still can't get his status, but I got mine, my mom's, my daughter's, but my grandchildren I can't get. So when do they stop being Indians? It's not fair. I know white people that are getting it, and they have no connection to this Duck Bay family. You need to wake up, as they told me at Fort Copel. Instead of idle no more, it should be wake up and learn your history. We need to do this because we're not getting anywhere and we're dying. Not just the old people, the young people. And younger than that, the babies. Excuse me, but I got false teeth and they come out. But you gotta stop fighting and get together and do this before it's too late. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? David Churchill.
With the scheme of things, the research that I've done, this area, it was created, all the campers, all the other things, they want to show you this. Today, we have the residential school, day school, the 60 schools, and what happened? Where were the chiefs at that time? When all this was going on? Not just here, all over the place. Yeah, the conference prevailed. The doctrine. It worked. It worked. There's no duct tape. My name is Camperville. Robert Camper. Used to be with you right here. I know that. You can go find out the facts there. That tells you all what I am. We are. Yeah, we didn't give a quarter one campaign long time. We always went to Dark Bay to look at stories there. But they tried, and archiving and all that, the whole land. East Coast family, 50, they must want to. You're gonna flood. Sorry, I'm here. They talking again. All the bands that were here, keys, all that, including that bay. You're gonna set it right there on our. These ones are going home. That's the homeland. That's the homeland. They're not to be bothered, and they're to live in harmony. It never happened. There's no harmony. There's no peace here. So, yeah, me too. I need some help. So, finding a river bank, then we have to. So, that's how we get back on move forward. I thought it was going to be that way. Yeah, but one thing, a bad council resolution, we make it work. We got it. Now we can move forward. Now, Robert's Rule of Order. At some point, we're gonna have to have a chairman, vice chairman, treasurer. At some point, so it doesn't matter if we vote for it. You're gonna vote at who there. Because they need to release the money without that. And by releasing the money, and I don't think for money, then we'll release the money, whether it be for lawyers to go forward on a lawsuit on this. I'd love to take support if you would lose that. It is consisting of about $147 million. Plus another $147 million for the payments to be homeowners. So this is big, bigger than all of that. Need a lawyer. We get that far. We need a lawyer to put it. But at some point, it all comes ahead. And once we get a good board of directors, it doesn't matter who's the lawyer. You'll get from us. Then from there, we'll get the chief of That's how the school works. So, I thank you for that conference resolution. And I'm sure we'll move forward with your help. Thank you.
Testing. Hello. My name is Rodney Bushy from Duck Bay. I'm a resident. I was a newly elected councillor, so this is news to my ears. I'd like to say thank you guys you guys are hard working. You guys are doing an excellent job. Right on. But we're also interested in this moving forward. So as to decide who you guys are going to be giving to, we're also interested in it. So we would like to know who you're going to give it to, and if we also have a say in it, because we're part of the Duck Bay Council, we're recognized by the government. So if you guys just to put us on there and to move forward, this is a great idea. It's been long going. My dad has been in this for a long time. He's not with us anymore. So I'd just like to pass on to all the people that put all their work that are not here anymore. So let's move forward and congratulate everybody with their hard work and say, right on, thank you.
I'm going to be moving now to sign the resolution. Just so everybody's aware, a band council resolution stays in the permanent record of the band. Kyle takes the resolutions and he keeps them in chronological order. So this one is chronological number 282-1373. So what I'm assuming then is that there's 1,372 resolutions before this one. So this will become part of our community record. And as part of our record, any member can come in and request a copy of it. You just have to come to the office and we'll give you a copy of it. I don't think we have a photocopier here today to make duplicate copies, so I'm only going to be signing this. And then it will be kept at the office, and if you want an official copy, we can make one for you on Monday or Tuesday or whenever you come in. You can have an official copy of this if you so please. And then you initiate your conversations that way. You take the resolution where you need to take it. There's implications here, because if we say that we're recognizing the historic treaty band of Duck Bay, then who is that? Who's going to show up at Fort Capel in September? Who's going to show up at the Chiefs meetings at the Assembly of First Nations in Ottawa next month? Who's going to show up at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs in Treaty 1, our next assembly? There's implications here of signing this and agreeing to this, but you have to get organized. And you saw a little bit of it here already. There's some difficult conversations that need to be had. None of this has ever been about money, as far as I'm concerned. It's about setting the treaty record straight and resurrecting that treaty responsibility back to the surface so that everybody is recognized the way they should be in treaty. So that's what this is about, and that's why I'm agreeing to this. Nobody's being forced off the Minigwazibi Anishinaabe band list. If you're here today, you can be on the list tomorrow. Even if there is a Duck Bay band in the future, they can't force you off the Pine Creek list or the Minigwazibi Anishinaabe list. It's a choice that you'll have to make. And you can stay here, you're welcome here. Everybody's welcome to stay here. This isn't about forcing anybody's hand or removing anybody or anything like that. That's not the outcome of this. This is going to create conversations all across the land. And it's going to create a conversation in Ottawa, because that's where this has to go. I was pleasantly surprised to hear that there is a claim that's been in with the Department of Justice. Justice receives our claims and then they put them on the shelf for what, 3 years? I think before anybody looks at it, it sits there for 3 years. And then they take it off the shelf and they're like, okay, maybe we have something here. Maybe we don't. So I'd be keenly interested to see where that goes, because I believe that we might be able to provide some value in that conversation, because we've been through the claims process a few times already. And we have people with the experience of settling claims for us as well. So without further ado, I'm going to be signing the resolution. I'm asking any council members that are here today to sign with me. Miigwech. We've asked Kyle Lafreniere to go around and ask if anybody wants to be recorded with their names in the record for today's meeting. Just because this is a historical meeting today, and it will be remembered as a historical meeting in the records of the Minnegosa Anishinaabe. So we're asking if anybody would like to leave their name as attending this meeting, so that in the future, when people look back in 100 years, they'll see who was in this room when this conversation happened. So I think he's starting over here. If you bear with him, maybe he'll get to you. But the resolution has been signed by a quorum. The four of us who are here. Don may be added when he comes back from his medical leave. From here, we will be sharing this with Crown Indigenous Relations in Ottawa. We'll be sending them a letter to notify of our position. We'll be sending a copy to the Treaty 4 Governance Committee. Chief Lynn Akus, I believe, is the spokesperson. She'll receive a copy of this. We'll send a copy to National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak, who will also get a copy at the Assembly of First Nations, and Acting Grand Chief Betsy Kennedy at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. So This will be circulated to the leadership organizations. And from there, if you want a copy, it'll be at the band office. Miigwech for coming out this afternoon. I think there's a little bit of food left if you're still hungry. Miigwech.